Hello. Hello. Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Why it is late? Previously, any class is going on? Previous class?
No, sir. We were thinking you were adjusting your network.
No, already I'm waiting for last 10-15 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Anyway, so today next unit is the already we are talking about the counseling to the behavioral issues. No, previously we have discussed already some issues related to the behavioral problems like autism and developmental delays. No, ADHD. These are the issues we already discussed.
Yes, sir.
Today, the same counseling to other issues like educational counseling, vocational and career counseling. In educational counseling, there are three important things we have to focus on. One is the student strengths and weaknesses. So any education course, when you are giving any education counseling to any other students, first of all, ask them to identify their strengths, or you can say its weaknesses. If the student is having proper these issues with their subject, maybe method of teaching, or you can say if there is any hardship of the subject, or some students they are having some problem with some other mathematical topics, algebra and other things. So whether these students are having proper interest on the subject or not. So I mean to say, we have to find out the strengths in the students. Also, some problems may be there in the students, like their personality, maybe their attitude and a subject, maybe they have some fear and particular subject. Okay, so these interest areas, attitudes, and some issues may be their personal, means fear of some subject. Okay, some skills they're lacking behind. So these issues we have to understand when we are giving the educational counseling. So if there is any gap between their strengths and their skills, so better to focus on those issues. Okay. Here, if there is any environmental issues, for example, the environment of that family or environment from their classroom environment, you can say. If there is any environmental issues, better to resolve those environmental issues with the help of the parents as well as the teachers. Okay, so with these issues, if there is any problem of their study habits, like they are not in a position to focus on particular time. So these study habits also better to improve among the students. When you are giving this educational counseling, as I mentioned, better to identify their strengths and weaknesses, and whether they are using their skills in a proper way or not. Those things also better to focus on. So in some cases, like there is any environmental problem, the environment may be the family environment or the classroom environment. So those things also better to focus on. In some case, in some issues, their attitudes, student attitudes, some subject they'll feel some type of hardship in a subject, or in some same subject, some topics. Okay, so these issues, if you find among the students, better to resolve those issues. Okay, so here better to consult the teachers and the parents also. If there is any problem with the teachers, better to consult the teachers to resolve their issue with the help of the teachers. And one more important thing is that whether they are their psychological readiness is up to mark or not. For example, in some cases, in some parents, they wanted to show their you can say, what do you say, they wanted to show their anxiety on the children. So without knowing the children's attitude, without knowing the children's interest, the student interest, some parents, in some cases, they force the children to do those courses, or you can say two of their subjects. So here, whether their psychological or physical readiness is there or not. For example, to understand the human growth and development. So that is most important thing in the part of educational counseling. So better to have proper understanding of their psychological and emotional status on the particular class. Okay, so an understanding of psychological status of the child. Okay, whether they are, as I mentioned in the learning theories, there are some theories of learning. One is E.L. Thorndike's learning theory. But in the theory, he explained very clearly there are some sub principles of the theory, learning theory. Okay, so in the learning theory, what he explained, E.L. Thorndike explained, the readiness of the child is important. Readiness of the student is important.
Sir, can you spell that name, sir, of the person?
Edward Thorndike. Edward, E-D-W-A-R-D. Edward Thorndike. T-H-R-O-N-D-I-K-E. Edward Thorndike. Theory of learning. Learning theory, you can say. Edward Thorndike.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Here in this theory, he explained about the we better to focus on the readiness of the child, readiness of the student. Readiness means physical readiness and psychological readiness and emotional readiness. Without proper understanding, without proper psychological readiness of the child, if you force him to do that course, so it may not be worked out. That is the reason there is a gap between his understanding capacity and the subject. So if it is going on for months together, years together, finally he will lose the interest on the subject on a course. Okay, so these are the most important things we have to focus on in the educational counseling. Then understanding the any issues with the group process. Group process means whether they are mingling with other children in the group or not. Maybe some issues related to their sociability, you can say. Means in the class, though they are having proper some understanding about the subject, because of the other siblings in the class, or you can say classmates in the class, some type of stressful conditions, stressful environment in the classroom. That means he is not in a position to share his feelings or her feelings in the classroom due to their isolated issues. Okay, so he will feel or she will feel that if I ask some questions, if I clear my doubts, if I ask my doubt to the teachers, so the other children, the classmates, they will criticize, they will laugh. So that is the reason he or she won't clarify her doubts or his doubts. If these type of group processing issues, or you can say issues related to the sociability. Okay, so better to understand these issues also. Number one, first of all, ask them to understand their strengths and weaknesses. Number one. Number two, whether the courses, whether the subject is related to his interest, attitude or not. And if there is any personal problems, so those things also better to focus on education counseling. Then the environment of the school environment as well as the family environment, because these environmental issues directly impact on their study habits. Okay, so these are the main important aspects we have to focus on in the educational counseling. Then after that, if these issues are resolved, then better to give some sort of goal setting issues. Goal setting means whether they are their goal is whether their goals are achievable or not. Okay, so if these goals are already if they set a goal, but the problem is with the achievement of the goal, they are not in a position to achieve that goal. What are the issues of this particular gap? Okay, so if they want to improve their potentialities and the skills, how to improve the potentials and the skills of the students, these things also we need to focus on in the educational counseling. So as I mentioned, if the methodology of the teaching, or you can say teaching methodology is not up to the mark, so better to modify the teaching methods. So, and if whether the teachers are not having their they are not focused on each and every person of the child of this class. That is that creates some type of gap between the child and the teacher, or you can say student-teacher relations. Okay, if such the cases, better to counsel the teachers also if it is needed. Not only the student counseling, if it is needed, teachers counseling as well as the parental counseling is also needed in this educational counseling process. Okay, and if some cases they will ask for the guidance, as I mentioned previously also, there's a difference between the guidance and counseling. Guidance means only with the problem, only one problem, they'll come to the person, or they'll come to the teacher, or they'll come to the counselor to get some guidance. Only in the particular aspect only, better to give that guidance, and they will go to another issues and they'll resolve that issue with the help of the teacher or the counselor. But counseling is the process. As I mentioned, that there is a difference between the guidance and counseling. Counseling is the part. Counseling is the process. When they came to counselor or the psychologist, so in order to resolve that particular issue, in order to resolve that particular problem, so better to empower the child. So when we empower the child, if there is any other issues in future course of time, he or she will be in a position to resolve that. This is a counseling. Guidance is only on the particular issue we will focus on. We will resolve that issue, and the child will go to the normal education process. But whereas in the counseling, in order to resolve that particular issue, empower the child, empower the student, so that they can easily resolve other issues with their skills. So empowerment is also one of the important aspects in the counseling, whereas in the guidance, that empowerment may not be there. Only for that, we'll focus only on that particular part. Okay, so here some educational guidance and these things, aims of the educational guidance means, so choose the proper curriculum. So we have to focus on the problem of the, if there is any curriculum issues, it means subject-wise issue, or you can say content-wise issue. So we have to focus whether the curriculum is suitable to the child's growth and development or not. So whether these children or whether these students are able to understand the curriculum, that is one issue we have to focus. Second is whether the study habits are related to the particular curriculum or not. Then how to improve the interest among the students to understand the curriculum. Okay. Then another aim of this process is understanding ask the student to understand the purpose of education, purpose of this particular subject, or you can say curriculum or the content. So what is the future? For example, if they learn properly in 7th class or 8th class, for example, the triangles chapter is there in the 7th class or 8th class. If they properly understand these triangles, concepts of triangles, types of triangles, and various other curricular aspects of the triangle, so it will be helpful in another next steps like 10th class if they want to go for the mathematics, physics, chemistry in the intermediate level. So trigonometry is the major part in the advanced courses, maybe in the engineering subjects or maybe any other further courses. These things we better to explain to the students so that they will understand the importance of the particular subject or the topic. So one aim of the subject, one aim of the counseling in this education system is curriculum, understanding the curriculum properly. Number 2, so ask the students to have proper understanding about the subject and the future chance of the particular subject. Then how to create the interest among the students on this particular subject as well as the topic. And if they are not in a position to cope up with the subject, to cope up with the understanding of the subject, better to increase their abilities, better to increase their potentialities so that they will understand the subject or the curricular activities. Then if there is needed, extra remedial class also needed, ask the teachers, we need to ask the teacher, we need to counsel the teachers. If there is any problem with the particular subject or the topic, So better to have some remedial class also to improve the study habits as well as the potentialities of the students. So here, generally counseling is in some cases, some problems of their personal issues, like for example, if they reach the 8th class or 9th class students, generally they 8th class, 9th class means the age of the students or the age of the children is around 12, 13 or 14 years of age. So if there is such the cases, some issues of their adolescent issues, adolescent problems of their rapid physical growth, then psychological disturbances and social issues. Those things will be raised in this particular age. So if in that cases of like psychological issues or any other issues related to adolescent age, better to ask the students, better to counsel the students these adolescent issues because of their rapid physical growth in their age, especially in the girls. In case of girls, they'll have some sort of distress in the mind due to their adolescent problems, sudden changes in their body, sudden changes in their functionings, sudden changes in their emotional issues, sudden changes in their psychological issues. So you better to counsel the students. These are only the temporary issues. These are not the permanent things. So after some months or some years, after some time, these issues automatically they'll dissolve. That type of counseling, that type of emotional support we have to give to the especially adolescent people, especially the girls students. Okay, so counseling in the schools means, so for example, counseling in schools or maybe any colleges, educational counseling is the most important thing. Why? Because this is the counseling that we are giving, that we are empowering the student to face any situations, not only in the particular class, not only in the particular subject, even in the future course also. Sometimes they will ask the teachers, and sometimes they will ask the counselor, the psychologist, to give proper guidance and the counseling to choose the future courses. That is nothing but vocational guidance. Vocational guidance means what are the subjects they wanted to go for the next advanced courses. They want to opt in the next advanced courses, like after completion of the schooling, what subject they wanted to go, and what are the options to choose. This is also one type of educational counseling, or you can say vocational counseling, to choose the subject. So to choose subject, not only subject, to choose the other options in the future courses. Okay, here some in this type of vocational as well as the career counseling, so some planning we have to give. So there are plans to give the guidance and counseling to this vocational as well as the career. One is that always ask the students, always ask this person to learn something, not only in the class, learn something from the elders. Okay, so learning is never stops. So always try to learn something from the classroom environment, something from the workplace environment, and something from the elders. Okay, because learning is a continuous process. Okay, so then second one is that how to give the guidance in the this vocational and career counseling means always ask them to learn something from the other sources of maybe some their from their own sources or from other sources of their classroom as well as the other environmental factors. Then second one is the ask them to listen properly. In some cases, especially in some schools or colleges, problem of this concentration memory. Okay, here there are some tips of memory. There are some tips of concentration. Those tips better to explain to the students. Okay, because of their, as I mentioned, because of their some other issues from their family, from their school environment, or from their own issues related to the adolescent. They may not be in a position to focus on the studies. They may not be in a position to concentrate on the studies on the classroom. So ask them to give proper to focus on the subject what are the consequences if they are not focused on the subject. That also we better to explain to the students. Okay, so focusing and learning from other resources. Then whatever the course, whatever the subject, whatever the vocation they choose, so better to focus on that. Okay, then so ask them to build a network. Network from their peer group, network from their classmates, network from the other members in the group. Okay, so that they'll have some interactions if they have doubts, if they have any problem in their learning process. They'll easily share their emotions, they easily share their feelings, they can easily express their doubts within this network. Okay, then ask them to have proper understanding about the courses. Under completion of the courses, what are the other options to choose in their future? Okay, so in some cases they'll have some sort of confusion in choosing the courses, or you can say conflicts. For example, whether they wanted to choose the MPC group or MBC group or CEC, what are the other groups? So here some guidance we need to give. What are the occasional chances, occasional opportunities at completion of that particular course? That also we are supposed to explain in a vocational as well as the educational counseling. Then what is the significance? The significance of the vocational as well as the career counseling. We have, because if they are not choose proper career in the right way, in the right manner, in the right age, what happens? So here, when they are not in a position to choose the proper job, what are the benefits they'll lose? Number one. And number two is that they lost the time. They lose the time. For example, if they, in some cases, they choose the subjects or they choose the groups by force from the parents or elders. In one case, I will explain one cases. One of my client, but he's a student of some engineering college university. Actually, he don't want to do the engineering course. After completion of his intermediate, he wanted to do the chartered accountancy. But the force by the students, the parents are forced the student to choose to join in the engineering colleges. But he is not interested, he is not showing any interest on the subject, but the parents are not willing to shift the child to some other job or some other courses. Continuously, he spent some 2 years at least in the same manner, without interest. He is attending the college. He was telling to the parents, I'm attending the college, but he is not attending the college regularly. He is doing some other activities rather than the studies. But they identified, the parents are identified after some 2 years, because all backlogs in the first year and second year, nearly out of 9 subjects in the first year engineering, only 1 or 2 subjects he passed. The rest of the 7 subjects in the backlogs. Same in the second year, that is 2-1, the first semester of the second year, some backlogs. Then second semester of the second year also some backlogs. Nearly 16 to 17 subjects of backlogs within these 2 years. But this issue they identify after 2 years or 2.5 years. So why I am citing this example means, if the parents are forced the students to do the course or to do subject or to choose the subjects, these things will be happening. So here, so one important aspect of giving proper guidance in vocational as well as the counseling means proper course, proper job, they will choose the right time in a proper manner. If they are not choosing the proper job or the course, one is loss of the time waste. Second is loss of their interest. Third is what are the benefits within the time, the prescribed time they complete the course. So there are so many advantages. They can easily go to the next level within their age limitations. Okay. So this is the way we need to give counseling, whatever the future features of the career counseling, and what are the benefits of the career counseling, what are the benefits of the right choice of their vocation, right choice of their jobs, right choice of their career. So these are all the things we have to explain in the career counseling. So better to provide proper understanding about that subject as well as the career of completion of the subject. Knowledge of their prospectus of completion of the course. That also we have to explain to the client as well as the students. Okay, and some assessment systems also there in this. You can say some assessment of the vocational counseling and the career counseling. For example, DBDA. DBDA means David's Battery of Differential Abilities. That is one important tool, that is one important assessment we generally apply in this vocational counseling, or you can say in the career counseling. Means here it's a battery. David's ability, differential ability means there are differential ability because all individuals are not unique. They have their own abilities. So if you want to identify the abilities of the child, another example, there are 7 types of abilities in that particular tool. One is reasoning ability, spatial ability, then clerical ability, mathematical ability, mechanical ability, these type of abilities. So depending on their abilities, depending on their aptitudes, depending on the students, depending on individual skills, we suggest the student to choose so and so vocation or as well as the career. That's one important. Another important thing is CIS, comprehensive interest schedule. That is also one important tool we use to give proper guidance and counseling to the vocational as well as the career counseling. Then we have some occupational choices. Okay, so in giving the proper counseling in this vocational as well as occupational choices, so we have some theories, I can say some perspectives. So one is the this one important thing is that one how to choose that option, how to choose the career. Okay, or you can say occupational choices. In occupational choices, there are some stages of occupational choices. In the individual, in the general, in the birth to 14 years of age, that you can say growth stage. In the growth stage, up to the age of 14 years, they will understand some aspects on their future. Okay, so depending on the other resources like from the teachers and from the parents and from the elders and from the siblings, they will have some idea about their vocation or you can say career. So this age is known as the growth stage, or you can say first initial to 14 years of age. In this connection, we have some other theories like what is two-factor theory by Spearman. We have some learning theories. So this Spearman explained that there are 2 important factors of learning. Means one is the theory related to the one important factor of the heredity factor. Second is the environment factor. The child automatically will have, or the student automatically will have some interest in a particular vocation or the job. That is depending on the heredity factor, genetical factors. Second is the environmental factors. So depending on the teachers, depending on the elders, depending on their environment. Environment is classroom environment as well as the family environment. They will have some idea about, they learn something and they will have some idea about the future. That means environmental factor. This is nothing but two-factor theory by Spearman's two-factor theory. So same way in this theory also, this occupational choices means first level is growth level. In this 0 to 14 years of age, they will understand, they will have some idea about the occasion or career in their future course of time. Then second one is explanatory theory. This theory will be, explanatory will be from 15 years to 24 years, explanatory stage. they'll know how to, they can easily understand, they can easily explain what will be the position in their vocation in the next future course of time. Then third one is the establishment. They will be established in the particular job. That stage is known as the establishment stage. Third one is the maintenance. Maintenance, they will be maintainable. They will continue in their profession, or you can say vocation. That is the under stage. Then last one is the declined stage. First one is the growth. Growth means they will be having some idea about the vocation or the career in their future course of time. Second is explanatory. They will explanatory means they will understand, they will easily explain what are the main advantages or disadvantages of the particular vocation, or you can say. Third one is establishment. They will establish. Okay, they will settle in that particular job, or you can say vocation. Then maintenance. They will continuously, they will be there in the, they will have their upgrading in their profession, or you can say career. Then final one is the decline stage. After 63 years or something, after old age, they won't have that much of ability to continue in their theory. This one theory is also known as the two-factor theory. So here in the two-factor theory, so a clear objective understanding about the oneself. In the two-factor theory, one factor is that they will understand their own self. They will have their insight. They will have their introspection. So what are their interests? What are their abilities? What are their attitudes? They'll have their clear understanding about their own self. Okay. So, and second part is that if they are understanding about the, they have the proper understanding about the self, they'll have proper understanding of their interests and attitudes. They will choose the right vocation and right career depending on their interest and attitudes. Okay. So this is one perspectives of the occupational choice. Second is some other theory like supers theory. Here in the supers theory, so first one is the how to choose the vocation. Okay, what are the developmental tasks to achieve that? Whether they have their developmental tasks in a proper time or not. Successfully they pass their developmental task in the particular time or not. That also one of the important aspects given by the supers theory. First of all, the major issues of the super theory, the major concept of the super theory, the vocation, what are the vocation they wanted to choose. So they want to choose, they have to choose by studying whether their tasks are achieved or not, whether their development tasks are to achieve successfully or not. Okay. So also after understanding of their own developmental tasks, they can easily change their vocation. Then implementation of the self concept of developing career. If they have proper suitable job, so that whatever their skills, whatever their potentialities, they'll easily implement in the job, as you can say career. Okay, then if they have proper understanding about the job, so automatically development of the career in the maturity level. Okay, so here on the one important thing is that what are the career patterns they'll understand. There are different patterns in the career. So those things also they can easily understand if the job is suitable to their interest and attitudes. Otherwise, they won't be in a position to focus on their job or the nature of work. Okay. So here, any job, any career that should be related to their interest and attitudes. Okay. So what are the choices? What are the options? So better to understand the various advantages of the particular option. Okay. So here, if these options are suitable to their interest and their abilities, better to choose that particular vocation as well as the idea. Here in this case also, educational, like vocational or career counseling also needed in this aspect. So these are all the various issues related to the counseling and guidance related to the education, vocation, and career counseling. Okay, so here in this counseling, we have some therapeutical procedures, or you can say approaches we need to understand. It may be any sort of counseling. One important therapeutical approaches, already we have discussed in the previous, but some other important things in the same therapeutical procedures we need to understand. One is the psychoanalytic approach of the Sigmund Freud. Psychoanalytic approach of the Sigmund Freud. So as I mentioned, psychoanalytic, any point of psychoanalytic, any angle of psychoanalytical approach, we have to understand 4 important aspects of the psychoanalytical approach. One is Sigmund Freud psychoanalytic approach, means one is the dynamic approach, second is the topography of mind, third is the developmental stages of the psychoanalysis, or you can say psychosexual developmental stages. Third one is the, finally is the defense mechanism. I repeat again, in psychoanalytical approach, there are 4 important aspects we have to understand. One is the dynamic approach. Dynamic approach means there are some 3 important dynamics in the mind. That is id, ego, and superego. Id, ego, and superego. Okay. So it is the animal trait, or you can say pleasure-seeking principle. Superego is the value-based principle, moral principles. So ego is the mediator between the id and superego. Okay. According to the Sigmund Freud, when we are giving the counseling, any sort of counseling, if you want to apply this psychoanalytical approach in the individual, what are the traits are dominating traits? Mean whether they traits are id dominated traits, ego dominated traits, and superego dominated traits. Their characteristics, you can say. Whether the characteristics are dominated by this id, ego, and superego. Okay, these are the main dynamics, or you can say main important things we have to understand when we are giving the counseling to this psychoanalytic approach. Okay, second is the topology. There are 3 important topography of mind, that is conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. Okay, so in conscious level, whatever we are understanding, that we are awareness of our own self, that is conscious level. So what we are here means we know what is going on now, so we can understand what is going on now. Okay, so that is the conscious level. Subconscious means second level, you can say pre-conscious level. A little bit of what we can understand what is going on today, what is going on 1 week back or 10 days back. You can easily recall if those things is in the subconscious or unconscious level. Subconscious level, not in unconscious, subconscious level. Okay, if it is unconscious, means some childhood experiences, better experiences. Okay, or suppressed thoughts or emotions. This material will be in the unconscious level. So in psychoanalytical approach, we have to understand what is there in the unconscious, what are the material in the unconscious level. Okay, so that you can easily identify their inner feelings. Yeah, so these are the 3 important aspects in the topography of our mind. One is the dynamics of the mind, whether the id characteristics, ego characteristics, are super ego characteristics of the individual that we have to analyze in the psychoanalytical approach. Second is the topography of the mind, unconscious, preconscious, unconscious, or you can say conscious, preconscious, and unconscious. Okay, these things we need to analyze in the counseling process according to the Sigmund Freud analytical approach. Then there are some stages of development according to Sigmund Freud. One is the oral stage, second is the anal stage, third is the phallic stage, fourth is the latency period, fifth is the genital stage, or you can say genital period. So these are the 5 psychosexual developmental stages according to the Sigmund Freud psychoanalytical approach. Okay, so for example, if the problem in the child or an individual is linked with their not achieving their developmental stages in their particular age. Okay, so we have to understand this is the reason of their behavior. This is the reason of their stressful condition. This is the reason of their anxiety. In such the cases, better to use some type of techniques in the psychoanalytical approach. That is free association. One technique is free association. So we counsel the person or individual to share their feelings in the unconscious layer, in the unconscious part. Okay. So here, so when we understand their emotions, emotional disturbances, or anxiety, or any other problem in their unconscious mind, unconscious state, so we can easily resolve that. We can easily do the proper counseling to that particular individual. So knowing, or you can say understanding of their emotions, understanding of the material that is hidden in their unconscious level is one important aspect in the counseling process. Okay, so here if they want to share their emotions, what are the emotions, what are their suppressed inner feelings, whatever their hidden feelings, emotions we can say, are suppressed conflicts. So through this technique of free association only, we will understand. So once we find out the root cause of that particular thing, so that we can easily give proper counseling to the client, or we can say individual. Yeah, that is one important technique of psychoanalytical approach according to the Sigmund Freud. Second is the dream interpretation. Dream interpretation of dreams. Okay, there are some reasons of dreams. So when we have proper understanding of their dreams, for example, if they are continuously bothered about some issue in the recent years, in the recent days, recent time, sometimes there is a chance of getting dream in the particular issue which they are bothering about. So this is one type of interpretation, or you can say dream analysis. So first technique of the psychoanalysis in the counseling process is free association with the client. Okay, that means sharing, we are giving some opportunity to share their feelings. As I mentioned in earlier classes, the more we listen, the more we can understand the client. The more we listen, the more we can give an opportunity to share their feelings. It's nothing but one type of free association. Second technique is the dream analysis. We will analyze the dreams. If they have continuous sleep on a particular issue and subject, better to analyze the dreams and some sort of interpretation of the dreams. That is a technique founded by the Sigmund Freud in the psychoanalysis. And third one is the slip of the tongue. Slip of the tongue also, if you want to analyze the slip of the tongue, maybe some inner feelings, some hidden feelings may be there within this unconscious level of the individual. That is the reason slip of the tongue. If we analyze as a professional, as a psychologist, as a counselor, if you analyze the slip of the tongue, why this slip of the tongue is happening, so that you will have some understanding about the inner feelings. So these three important techniques in the psychoanalytic approach of the Sigmund Freud. Then in some cases, the final one is the defense mechanism. Generally, we use defenses in order to protect our ego. Always we have to protect our ego, because if continuous damage of ego also leads some type of psychological disorders. That is the reason we are supposed to protect our ego. In order to protect our ego, generally we use some defenses, that is known as a defense mechanism. Okay, but this defense mechanism, continuously excessive use of defense mechanism also leads some psychological disorders, abnormal behavior. For example, repression is one important depression, denial, reaction formation, projection, then displacement, then rationalization, sublimation. These are all the defenses. One important, there are some nearly 7 to 10, 8, 9 defenses, or you can say defense mechanisms. One is the repression, means whatever the emotions, whatever the bitter feelings, whatever the childhood experiences, forcefully you wanted to, if you want to forcefully, intentionally, if you want to forget those things, you want to suppress those things, that is known as a repression. This is in order to protect ourselves, we forcefully, intentionally wanted to forget these emotional disturbance, or you can say bitter experiences, or you can say childhood experiences. This is one type of defense mechanism. This type of mechanism is called repression. Okay. And another thing is that projection. Projection means, so one's unacceptable feelings or thoughts to others in the base, on the basis of projection. We are projecting our unwanted feelings, unacceptable feelings in a different way, in a different manner on another person. That is called projection. You are projecting your feelings. You are showing your feelings in a different way. Your thoughts, your unacceptable feelings, projecting in a different way. That is also one mechanism. One is the repression. Second is the projection. Third is the displacement. Displacement means the anxiety moments, or you can say it is anger. Your anger is, you are showing, if you have anger, your anxiety, or you can say anger, you are anxious, your anger, and your emotional disturbances. So if you have that emotional disturbance, you are showing your emotions in some other ones. That is displacement. Okay. So here, these are all, or you can say rationalization. Rationalization means whatever your feelings, whatever your emotions, whatever feelings, emotions, we are rationalization of our unacceptable feelings in a normal way. Okay. Then regression. Regression means to go to the previous stages of development. Okay. So another thing is identification. Identification of whatever the achievements, you are not in a position to achieve those things. You wanted to, for example, the person is wanted to become a doctor, because of other issues, because of his own problems, he couldn't get the job, or you can say he couldn't get reach the job. That is, he couldn't achieve that goal of becoming a doctor. So he wanted to identify his own characteristics. He wanted to identify his own personality in some other person, like his own daughter or his own son. So that is known as the identification. So these are all the defense mechanism. Generally, we use defense mechanism one way or other way, but excessive use of defense mechanism, or you can say excessive use of defense, leads some type of abnormal behavior. Abnormal, I can say, is abnormal behaviors. Okay, so here these are all the main concepts of psychoanalysis by Sigmund Freud. Okay, one is the dynamics of the mind, that is whether the id characteristics, ego and superego is dominating in the individual, that we need to understand when we are applying the psychoanalysis in the counseling process. Second is conscious, preconscious and unconscious. So what are the hidden material in the unconscious level that we need to understand in giving the counseling according to the Sigmund Freud psychoanalysis. Third one is the whether these developmental stages, means as I mentioned, 5 developmental stages like oral stage, anal stage, phallic stage, latency period, or genital stages. If these stages are achieved in the particular age or not, if they are not achieved this particular, according to Sigmund Freud, the individual is supposed to achieve these developmental milestones in their ages. If they are not achieved these stages, these achievements in their particular age, so some issues will be raised in the later developmental stage of the individual. So the things also we need to analyze when we are giving counseling in the psychoanalysis. Finally, defense mechanism. Generally, all individuals, they use defenses one way or other way to protect themselves. But continuous or excessive use of defense mechanisms also leads some psychological disorders, or you can say abnormal behavior. When we are giving counseling to this abnormal behavior person, or if there is any psychological disorders, we need to analyze, is there any defense mechanism they are using, excessive using of defense mechanism in the individual, so that you can easily identify the root cause of the particular issue, so that can give the counseling to the particular individual or the patient. Okay. So a combination of this psychoanalytical theory, next you can say then one is behavioral approach, or you can say behavioral theory. So in the behavioral theory, as I mentioned, behavioral theory is depending on the behavioral approach is depending on the 2 important conditioning theories. One is classical conditioning theory, second is the operant conditioning theory. Okay, in the classical conditioning theory given by artist Ivan Pavlov's classical conditioning theory, and second is the operant conditioning theory by Skinner. So here in this both theories, like behavioral theories, you can say, as a behavioristic approach is depending on these 2 important theories, and third one is the social learning theory by Bandura. So here, these are the 3 important aspects we need to understand when we are giving the counseling in this behavioristic approach. Okay, in behavioristic approach, one is the cognitive behavior theory, another is the cognitive behavior therapy. Okay, so in this behavior therapy, we need to understand, is there any other behavioral issues, like for example, these conditions like behavioral, for example, if there's any problem with their behaviors, you can say odd behaviors, or you can say undesirable behaviors or problematic behaviors. So if the behavior is the reason of this behavioral or this undesirable behaviors, maybe some sort of skill deficiency. Okay, if there is any problem with the skills, so this skill deficiency leads some type of behavioral problems in the children as well as the elders also. So these important things we need to understand in the behavioral approach. Okay, so in the behavioral approach, we need to understand the problematic behavior, why they are showing this type of problem behaviors. There any skill deficiency among the children or any reason of these individuals. So when we understand this root cause of the behavioral, that is, you can say problematic behaviors, so that we can easily give the proper counseling to this particular issue, or you can say behavioral problem. So whenever the behavioral problems are showing, we have to understand whether the time, person, and place. TPP can say TPP means time, person, and place. Which time they are showing this, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. For example, if the child is not at one place, that is one type of, you can say it is a hyperactivity. This hyperactivity in the morning hours, afternoon time, or evening time, the time we have to analyze, we have to understand the time. Second one is the person, or you can say which person, and whose, but in the presence of mother, he is showing that behavior. In the presence of grandparents, these children are showing this type of behavior. That means person. And place, the environment, whether there's any environmental influence on this behavior, that we need to understand. So here, so environmental issues, if there is anything, that better to analyze that, better to understand that behavior in a particular person, or you can say TPP, time, place, and person. Okay, so here cognitive behavior therapy, why it is known as the cognitive behavior therapy. Cognition means thought process. Okay, then if the thought process is some way, it is a negative way, that leads some type of negative behavior, or you can say problematic behavior, or you can say undesirable behaviors in this individual, or you can say child. So cognition means thought process, as we mentioned, as we know that cognition is the thought process, means whether their understanding is a positive way or negative way, whether their analysis, their interpretation, their knowledge on a particular aspect is in a positive way or negative. If there is a problem with their understanding, better to restructuring their understanding, or you can restructuring of their thought process. It's nothing but CRT, cognitive restructuring technique, CRT. There is a problem with the CV, with cognition, or you can say thought process, better to change their thought process. For example, if the thought process is in a negative way, that is the reason they are showing this type of negative behavior, or you can say undesirable behavior or problematic behavior. Any doubt? Hello?
Sir, it's clear, sir.
Clear, no?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay, yeah. So here, in this cognitive behavior theory, cognition means, as we know, we are aware of cognition means thought process. So understanding, analysis, knowledge, interpretation. So here in this thought process, if there is any negative understanding, so it leads some sort of negative behavior, we can say undesirable behavior and problematic behavior. So here, if there is any such cases, if there is any such negative understanding of a particular issue, better to restructuring their thought process. It is nothing but a cognitive restructuring technique, CRT. Okay, that is one aspect we will. So, for example, if the child is modifying his behavior, or if the person is modifying his behavior, better to give some type of reinforcement, that is known as the positive reinforcers. In the operant conditioning theory, he explained Skinner explained the various types of behavior, that is reinforcers. One is positive reinforcement, second is the negative reinforcement. Okay, in the positive reinforcement, better to provide some type of reinforcers to the individual or child if she or he modify his behavior. Modifying his behavior means something he is learning from the therapist. He is learning from the elders or caregivers, you can say. Okay. So as I mentioned, learning means the one important definition of learning is modification of behavior through training and experience. If the therapist or the caregiver trained the child, and if the child is modifying his behavior, means that person is learning something from the elders or from the psychologist or the therapist. Okay. So here, these type of techniques we generally use in the behavioral therapy. In the classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and also I told the social learning. There are three important learning theories we use generally. As I mentioned, the very important aspects. What are the technique, what are the skills we use in the counseling process? For every skill, there is a backbone of technique. For every technique, there is a root of therapy. For every therapy, there is a root, or you can say base of theory. Okay, same way here in this behavioral therapy, also behavioral approach, also there are three important theories. That is classical conditioning theory, operant conditioning theory, then social learning theory. These are the three important theories. These theories are base or foundations of the behavioral approach. Okay, so in the classical conditioning theory, what we use the technique, what are the techniques we use means, one is aversion technique and systematic desensitization technique. Generally, these two important techniques we use in this behavioral approach. Okay, systematic desensitization already may explain. Systematic desensitization means anxiety, any phobic conditions are there in the children. That means we wanted to address the issues related to the anxiety. Okay, so we use systematic desensitization, as I mentioned, hydrophobia, hypophobia. Okay, if these are phobic conditions, better to use the systematic desensitization technique. Previous class also explained desensitization, and systematic desensitization. So this is one technique we use, generally we use in these issues related to the behavioral problems, or you can say phobic conditions. Okay. Yeah. And another thing is, in operant conditioning, there are techniques. If you want to use the classical conditioning theory, one important technique we use is systematic desensitization, systematic desensitization. Why you call it as systematic desensitization? Means step by step. What are the sensitization? Be desensitizing their anxiety, reducing their anxiety, addressing their anxiety, but stepwise. That is the reason we are calling it as a systematic desensitization. Systematic means stepwise. Desensitizing is reducing of their anxiety. So this desensitization generally we use if you want to choose the base of classical conditioning. In the classical conditioning, systematic desensitization. And aversion conditioning also. Aversion conditioning means, for example, thumb sucking. Thumb sucking means whenever the child shows this type of behavior, we use some techniques to avert that conditioning. She is conditioning to the thumb sucking. To reduce the thumb sucking behavior, the problematic behavior, there are some techniques we use to avert to reduce, to counter that problematic behavior. For example, we tie a rubber band on his hand, okay, and we pull the rubber band whenever the child showing that problematic behavior comes again. Okay, so that after 1 or 2, the connection is, so the aversion is connected to the problematic behavior, so that the child or the person or the individual reduces, stop that particular problematic behavior.
Sir,
Yes.
I think aversion for something would be something like applying bitter ointment kind of a thing on his finger. That would be more effective, no, sir? Because every time, if we have to pull the rubber band, somebody has to continuously monitor him and do it for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for this, which would be more effective, like pulling the rubber band, which would be equally painful.
Yeah.
On the other hand, applying something that is bitter, something that as and when he sucks, it is giving an unpleasant smell and an unpleasant taste.
Let me complete. As I mentioned, the TPP, you're talking about continuously fishy showing that. I mentioned TPP, time we need to note. Time, which time, whether that's thumb sucking or any other problematic behavior, time,
okay,
place, and person. We need to know. So one type of analysis we have to do first. Before addressing that issue, we have to find out these important TPP, time, whether the morning time, immediately after getting some food, or if she is having some problem with their issues, that is the reason. Maybe any other issues like anxiety, or you can say some sort of fear. Thumbs up in the one important reason of thumb sucking is fear, also one of the important reason of thumb sucking. Okay, or you can say any insecurity feeling. Okay, so these time, place, person we need to understand. That is number one. Then if the particular time is there, in the particular time only we need to tie up the rubber band and we need to pull. So that there should not be any time gap between the problematic behavior and the aversion technique you are using. That is one important thing. Second one is that depending on the age, depending on the number of times how behavior is showing, timings. Then one important aloe vera also we apply in the particular finger. Aloe vera and some sort of these things. Okay, some sort of oil liquids. Generally, aloe vera we suggest. There won't be any side effects on the applying of aloe vera juice. Okay, so whenever she or he take the finger, it means thumb sucking. So this type of aversion technique we use. So slowly this will be reduced. This timings, as I mentioned, timings you have to affect, whether the 10 times per day or 8 times per day or 3 times per hour, the morning time, afternoon time, or evening time. Generally, we use one type of aversion by pulling that rubber band, number one. Number two, applying some type of juice, or you can say some sort of bitter content in that particular thing. Yeah, is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so these are the techniques we use generally if you want to apply the classical conditioning theory. Why we use this particular theory means if you observe that one experiment is there, classical conditioning theory experiment. Okay, so conditioning response, stimuli, CS, UCS, UCR, conditional stimuli, or conditional response. Then unconditional stimuli, unconditional response.
Unconditional response.
These are the things we are using in these particular techniques. Okay, yeah. Then in operant conditioning theory, as I mentioned, reinforcements means positive reinforcements as well as the negative reinforcement. So we have to take utmost priority precautions when you are applying this reinforcements, whether it's positive reinforcement, or negative reinforcement. For example, depending on the age, depending on the IQ levels, or you can say understanding capacities of the child, and understanding capacities of the individual. So this reinforces. Some reinforces are the verbal communication, some are the non-verbal communication also. You can, for example, the child is in a position to understand your positive things. It means positive reinforcers. So better to use that. Negative reinforcement means some sort of techniques, non-verbal communication you can show, you can give the negative reinforcement when you want to apply the negative reinforcement. Generalization. In some cases, so generalizing. Okay, generalizing is, so for example, if we apply one type of reinforcement, positive reinforcement to this, if we use some sort of positive reinforcement, same reinforcement, same whatever the reinforcers you are using, so there is a chance of generalizing it. There is a chance of transferring whatever that is learning in this particular reinforcement. Those learning experience, there is a chance of transforming, or you can say transferring the same learning experiences to the next one. This is nothing but a generalization. If a child is, for example, if they modify their behavior, if we positively reinforcing the child, for example, if the mathematical concepts, if he is not in a position to understand the mathematical concepts, and some problem with the mathematical concepts, so she or he showing some sort of problematic behaviors. When we give some positive reinforcement, if he understands something in the mathematical concepts, the same reinforcement, the same technique we can apply to the other subjects also. This is one type of generalization. Okay. Then discrimination means there may be a difference of using one reinforcement to the other reinforcement. Okay. So that same reinforcement technique we can't use to the other behavior. So there is a generalization means whatever the technique we are using to modify the problematic behavior, that can be transferred to the learning of some other desirable behavior. So generalizing of these two is one important technique. Second is the discrimination. Means the same technique is not so easy to apply into the other thing. That is the discrimination. Then token economy, or you can say token system. Token system is that one important technique generally used in the classical conditioning theory. Some tokens we provide, then the child is modifying his behavior. If they modify their undesirable behavior to the desirable behaviors, some type of tokens. Okay, so those tokens can be transformed into their whatever the things they wanted to get. So this type of tokens, the tokens also, or you can token systems, or you can say token economy. Also, that is one important technique we use in the operant conditioning, depending on the operant conditioning theory. Okay. Then in social learning theory, as I mentioned, there are three important theories. One is the classical conditioning theory. Second is the operant conditioning theory. Third is the social theory, or you can say social theory by Bandura. First one is the classical conditioning theory by Ivan Pavlos. Second is the operant conditioning theory of Skinner. Third is the social learning theory.
Albert Bandura.
Okay. So in the social learning theory, modeling is one technique. Okay. Then self-observation. Self-observation is another important technique in the that is social learning theory by Bandura. So here in the self-observation, first one is the modeling. Modeling means maybe the modeling also, there are important types of modeling. One is live modeling, symbolic modeling, self-modeling, then participation in that particular aspect. Okay, then convert modeling, So here in this modeling, okay, generally the client is made to observe the behavior of another person. We will ask the client, we will ask the child, we will ask the individual to observe the behavior of the other person. So depending on their observation systems, observation procedures, there are some techniques in the types of observations. One is there are types of modelings. One is life modeling, then symbolic modeling, self modeling, participant modeling, and then covert modeling. So here in this modeling, there are some important things we need to observe. One is the behavioral modification of behavior. One is the how to modeling that, and that means we need to teach them. We need to train the child or the person to improve, to know the modeling system. Second one is when they start the modeling, some distractions, or you can say some type of disturbance may be there. Means they are not in a position to modeling properly. They are not in a position to show the behavior. In that case, better to prompt the behavior. For example, if the child wanted to, if the child learn how to walk, initially we need to show, we need to take the child, we need to keep the child for some distance. That is the first step. Second is the ask the child to walk by taking support of some other objects. You can say like cot or some other objects. Third one is then ask the child, ask the person, ask the child to walk independently. So this is nothing but the first one is the teaching, second is the prompting, third one is some type of motivation. So motivating the person, motivating the individual, motivating the child in the modeling procedures. Then in case of, in this particular modeling technique, some type of anxiety will be released. So better to reduce the anxiety. Finally, if there is any problem with the issues, so encouraging. In some cases, if there is any problem with the child, discouraging the problematic behavior. Okay. So this is the final aspect of the thing. Okay, I think time is up. That is already 1:35. Better to make the text. Okay. Is it okay? Any doubts?
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So next up, this unit is the 18th unit. There are 18th and 19th other that is the therapies. One is the cognitive behavior therapy and humanistic approach. These are the, in this fourth block, the rest of the two therapies are, you can say, two approaches. One is the humanistic approach, another is the cognitive behavior approach. We'll see in the next session, next class.